Hey everybody, Jim here. Well, another year has gone. 2016 is officially over and 2017 has begun. 2016 may well be behind us, but its cinematic offerings may never be forgotten. 2016 has actually given the world quite a few very good movies this year, and very often, as it usually is the case, the ones you expect to be the best not necessarily end up being the best. Very oftentimes a gem will come out that you won't even be anticipating, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by how it turns out. On New Year's Day last year, if you had asked me what was your most anticipated movie of 2016, my answer would have been... Spoiler alert, won't be on this list. Hell, if I was making a top 20 list of 2016 movies, it still wouldn't have made the list. And that is by far the biggest disappointment of 2016. This was supposed to be the year that we were getting a new DC Cinematic Universe to compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and man, did 2016 offer two massive disappointments in that arena. Mostly 2016 has been the year of Disney. The Walt Disney Corporation, with its conglomerates Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, have done a phenomenal job this year, creating hit after hit both critically and financially, some of which will make this list and others didn't quite make the cut, but that doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they weren't quite good enough to compete on this list. And for the tinfoil hat crowd, it's true. Disney does bribe the critics with a shitload of money to praise their movies. This show is actually shot in the Magic Kingdom Castle. You just never know it. Alright, all jokes and kidding aside. Let's move on to the 10th best movie that I've seen in 2016. Now, let's keep in mind, just as with last year, I have not seen every single movie that was released in 2016, and there could well be some movies that would be on this list if I had seen them, but since I haven't seen them, they're missing. This is still a pretty big overview, and I try to see as many movies as I can in general. It's my thing. Alright, move on to number 10. Number 10, Captain America Civil War. Well, this is a movie I've already done a quick thoughts video on earlier this year, and I'll try to keep this brief and not repeat myself too much. Captain America Civil War is genuinely a really good superhero movie and a really good political thriller on top of that. This movie kind of deals with the whole debate of liberty versus security, and that debate has been done in quite a few movies, but the Russo brothers, both in this movie and in Captain America Winter Soldier before it, really seem to have broad concerns about privacy and liberty and international conflicts, and put it within the structure of a superhero movie with a bunch of fictional superheroes and do it really well. The movie's entertaining. There are moments where you laugh, where you go, yeah! It's just a really fun to watch movie that also is really smart. You have great performances by your actors. You have great special effects. You have introduced characters that will eventually get their own movies. Overall, this is just a really good entry to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only problem I have with the Russo brothers directing, again, is their propensity to use shaky cam, which is something I really can't stand, to be honest. But other than that, I absolutely love their work, and I really hope they carry it over to Avengers 3. Alright, let's move on to number 9. Number 9, The Jungle Book. As with the last one, this is also one I did a quick thoughts video on when it first came out back in April, so I'll try not to repeat too much from it. How would my perspective of this movie changed in the 8 months since I did that quick thoughts video? Well, I have it on Blu-ray 3D right now, and it really does make perfect use of the Blu-ray 3D format. If you haven't seen it in that format, that's definitely one to check out. And since then, this movie was a huge hit at the box office. And so they've both announced a sequel to this movie and announced that Jon Favreau, the director of this movie, will be using the exact same style to make a remake of The Lion King. Well, it describes it as a live-action remake of The Lion King, but let's be honest, it's not going to be live-action at all. This movie was 80% an animated movie, just with a live-action actor and a few props mixed in there. But since there are no humans in The Lion King, what exactly is going to be live-action about it? It pretty much is just another animated Lion King, but this time done with photorealistic computer animation rather than hand-drawn animation. That could go well, I guess, but it's a really tough one because The Lion King is a much better animated movie than The Jungle Book ever was. The Lion King is still one of the greatest animated movies of all time. I was 6 when it came out, and I just remembered that movie was just everywhere. Its songs were played on the radio. It just made such an impact on the world because it was fantastic. But back to the new remake of The Jungle Book, it really is pretty damn good. Like, it takes elements of the 1967 movie, mixes it up with a few extra things from the Kipling books that it kind of puts in there, though, like I said in the previous Quick Thoughts video, it's far more a remake of the 1967 movie than a readaptation of the Kipling books, and it kind of just mixes all together with stunning visual technology and great voice acting. People like Ben Kingsley and Idris Elba just give really powerful vocal performances for these realistically rendered animals. And I really am looking forward now to Disney's live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. I've seen the trailers now, and it seems like they're going for really making it close to the original animated one. And I guess since that was the first animated movie to ever get an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, Disney figures, why change what works? They should have thought of that when they did Maleficent. Alright, move on to number 8. Number 8, Moana. Moana is probably the closest thing Disney's done since Frozen that really sticks to the traditional Disney formula. Whereas Big Hero 6 was trying to be a superhero movie. Zootopia, of course, tried to be like a cop thriller that dealt with political implications. Moana is basically just the story of a heroine, a princess of her island, who goes on a journey to try to save her island. It's a little bit different, though, because there's not really a romance element the way you would have in, like, the old school ones. That seems to be something Disney's been moving away from little by little, more of a sign of changing times. But you get with this movie really phenomenal animation. Like the visuals of the ocean and all these islands they visit, where Moana and Maui, voiced by Dwayne Johnson, move around and they see gods and monsters and the like. And it's all beautiful to look at. The characters are very interesting. You have great songs, not the best songs, but really good stuff out of Disney. 2016, like I said, it really is the year of Disney, and Moana is a really fantastic example of that. One thing I will say about Moana, though, not since Tinkerbell have we kind of had a character who's supposed to be one of the good guys, not really a villain, who behaves in a very ethically questionable way than the character of Maui, voiced by Dwayne Johnson in this movie. Do you remember in the original Peter Pan from 1953 when Tinkerbell essentially tries to have Wendy murdered because she was jealous that a boy she liked was giving Wendy more attention than her? And yet this character is rarely ever seen as a villain, even after she does something so absolutely despicable. And Maui is kind of the same way, as he does things that are nearly as questionable as what Tinkerbell did there. And yet, of course, at the end, he kind of redeems himself in a way. But I like that more, actually, that one of our protagonists, not the main protagonist, but kind of the secondary protagonist, is a deeply, deeply flawed character. So you can really develop and get into his past and what have you. So, yeah, Disney did a really good job on this one. They seem to have done a consistently good job with almost everything the past 6 years. They really have recovered immensely. All right, let's move on. Number 7, Fences. This was a movie I only saw a couple days ago, but man, it really has a powerful impact on the audience. This is a very, very strong drama, and Denzel Washington and Viola Davis give phenomenal performances. I predict both of them are probably going to be up for Best Actor and Best Actress of the Year at the Oscars, and honestly, they kind of deserve it, because the family drama in this movie is just some of the most heart-wrenching stuff I've ever watched. Fences is based on a stage play, and you can kind of tell because this movie doesn't really feel cinematic, and it doesn't try to be, but I guess in a way that's kind of a good thing because it keeps all this drama really intimate. Denzel Washington's character, Troy Maxim, you kind of start him out and hear more and more and learn more and more about this guy as the movie goes along. He first just seems like a charming, ordinary fellow. He's living in the segregated times back in the 1950s, and he's well into his 50s, and you can tell that he has a lot of bitterness about the way his life turned out, about all the opportunities that were denied to him. And you hear more about the man's past and how he has some pretty rough times growing up. And you really understand this character. And at first, he kind of seems understandable, but you find out as the movie goes along that he is much, much more flawed of a man than he appears. The movie gets into things like adultery and family violence and the like. And by the end of this movie, there are times, like when he fights with his son, you almost root for his kid to just pop him off, just because he is just such an asshole sometimes. But it's the mark of a great character and great acting when you really understand a character, and even when his actions are totally inexcusable, when he does things that are easily reprehensible, you still kind of see where he's coming from. The bitterness this man has felt, and the way his life didn't turn out the way he wanted it to, and the way he's reaching his senior years, and how that just weighs in on him. This is just really powerful stuff. Fences comes highly recommended if you can handle its often quite difficult subject matter. Number 6, Hacksaw Ridge. This is one, again, that I've already done a quick thoughts video before, and I have not had the opportunity to see this movie a second time since doing the first quick thoughts video. So I might just have the same feelings as I did in that quick thoughts video. Not really much has changed, but I still need to reiterate, Hacksaw Ridge really is a fantastic war movie. This is a really gritty, intense World War II drama. It's respectful to the people involved. Even when they didn't always do the right thing, it still kind of makes you understand their actions. Just because it has really well-developed, really understandable characters, gorgeous cinematography, and even though the budget of this wasn't that high, so some of the effects look a little on the cheaper side, it still all looks amazing. This is a movie that really everyone should see and really appreciate this very unique American hero. Like I said, check out my quick thoughts video for a few more thoughts on it, but that's all I got to say for now. Number 5, The Witch. Oh boy, is The Witch the horror movie I have wanted to see for a very, very long time. As I think I've mentioned before, I'm generally not a fan of at least 90-95% of horror movies that get released. They're so often by the numbers of dipshit teens getting caught out in the woods, or someone who sees like this weird ghost in the distance that makes creepy faces on her. They've just gone through and they become predictable. The Witch tries to do something different, and it succeeds marvelously. The thing that really stunned me about The Witch is how much attention to detail this movie takes at being period accurate. And there is a drawback to that. They speak in a very old school English, the way someone would honestly have spoken in the 1600s, which is very different from the modern English that people speak today. Languages evolved quite a bit, and English back then almost sounds like a foreign language compared to English today. And because of that, a lot of scenes in this movie are kind of difficult to understand. Well, I probably need to see this movie a few more times to really get every little detail of it. But this movie really captured the dread and isolation of a family during that time period, their supernatural fears, by really realizing what that would be like on screen. And it is just terrifying. This movie just has such a creepy atmosphere. It fills you with its sense of dread from beginning to end. The Witch really puts you into the mindset of a long-forgotten period in a way that very few movies, even period dramas, are really able to capture. So you get with this movie both kind of a good history lesson, not on literal history, but on the historical mindset of the era, combined with a really fantastically grim, dark, and artistically stylized horror flick. The Witch is a very highly recommended movie, but it isn't for everyone, because like I said, it is difficult to understand at times. It's so grim, so dark, and at times gruesomely violent that might be off-putting to some people. But if you can handle all those things, you will love The Witch. This is a just wonderful horror film. All right, let's move on. Number 4, Arrival. This is yet another one that I did a quick thoughts video on earlier this year, and I might repeat a few of the same points, but this is genuinely a really, really intelligent piece of science fiction. And I think the first 2/3 are really some of the most intelligent sci-fi I've ever seen put to cinema. Even though I think the last third, that its themes that it veers off into don't really mesh well with the first 2/3, and thus I thought it really kept this from being quite the sci-fi masterpiece that I could have been had those two elements blended together. I still think the end product is a really damn good science fiction movie. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner both give really fantastic performances, Forrest Whitaker as well, and you get a really interesting sense of how the world would react to seeing an alien presence land in the Earth's atmosphere. Like, there's this one part I didn't talk about in the quick thoughts video I did earlier, where you see this like Alex Jones type figure complaining that the military isn't trying to blow them away instead of establishing first contact. That was really, really funny, but not funny in the sense that it took away from the seriousness of the movie, but funny in the sense that it was developing really clever real-world commentary on how such events like these would unfold. And the scenes of them speaking with the alien intelligence and trying to communicate with such a radically different form of alien intelligence are just so wonderful. They are so magnificently done. The ways those circle things and the way they try to like match them up with various words and points and phrases, it all felt very real, like how first contact with an alien intelligence really would go. The Arrival really is one of the more interesting and intelligent science fiction movies I've seen. In every way, this movie is kind of the anti-Independence Day resurgence. So overall, you should definitely check The Arrival out. It is definitely one of the year's best movies. Number 3, Marvel's Doctor Strange. You did it again, Marvel. You once again rebooted a lesser-known character and made him a critical part of this universe and did a fantastic job at it. Marvel's Doctor Strange was a movie that was considered for a long time, but I guess it was put on the back burner often, both because the character's a little more obscure outside of comic book circles, as well as because of the difficult nature of integrating this movie's vast supernatural elements into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But both are done phenomenally in this movie. The action sequences are some of the most imaginative stuff I've ever seen in any movie. The use of 3D in this movie, easily some of the best I've seen this year. Possibly the best I've seen since Gravity. Just the way he falls through the layers of the multiverse. Alright, this is just perfect demo stuff in 3D. And what's cool about this movie is it really feels like a nice standalone adventure for this hero. Movies like Civil War, which connect highly to lots of different Marvel movies, are great and all, but this one really feels more like it could, short of a couple lines, it could just be its own thing. If there was never a Marvel Cinematic Universe and this movie had just come out on its own, just change I think 2 lines and of course the end credit scene that ties things together, and it would still work just fine on its own. And I really like that fact. I like that all these different heroes can all exist in the same universe, but when they have solo movies, their adventures should just be that, solo movies that aren't here to just set up a bunch of different Marvel movies or Marvel characters. This movie does that. We get a really cool villain in this one, who I guess is a tad underdeveloped, which I've come to expect that from every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but he's better developed than most in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he really feels like a credible threat, and has a really good presence about him. Benedict Cumberbatch, he's always excellent. The voice of Smaug. All right, who can resist that voice? My claws are spears. My wings are a hurricane. Great stuff, Benedict Cumberbatch. Overall, this is easily one of the best entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I really look forward to seeing more of this character. I heard he's got appearances in Avengers 3 and Thor 3, and I cannot wait. Because I love this movie, and I love what Marvel has been doing. Keep doing what you're doing, Marvel. Number 2, Zootopia. Zootopia was yet another very pleasant surprise from Disney. When I saw the early trailers for it, I didn't think it was going to be bad or anything like that. I thought it's Disney and they've been on a roll lately. It'll probably be pretty good somehow. And then when I started hearing that it was going to be getting to politics on race relations, I started to get a little worried. As people who follow me know, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the social justice commentary on race relations. So I was worried it was going to be something out of Francesca Ramsey's playbook or some crazy shit like that. It's not. Zootopia is an excellent movie. And its examination on race relations and its examination on societal prejudices doesn't feel like it's trying to serve some kind of political agenda, at least none blatantly that I could see. It really felt like a more generalized examination on the way people treat each other and the way different groups can have misperceptions about each other. And that feels like a very universal message. With this movie, you get a very interesting detective storyline, which actually has a really clever conclusion that you don't entirely expect. You can kind of suspect it. It is ultimately a movie made towards kids, so it's not massively complex, but it's complex enough that it's not blatantly obvious how it's going to go towards the end. And the way this movie goes through its twists and turns and deals with the subject matter it deals with, while not feeling bogged down by the subject matter, feeling like this flows naturally from the story in this universe. And I really love the design of this universe, this city of anthropomorphic animals, because very oftentimes they'll try to grow one animal, like a mouse, to 3 feet and a giraffe down, basically try to keep them a more uniform size. What I love that Zootopia did is it had a lot of fun playing up the vast difference in size between these creatures and all the ways this society works around that fact. It was all just some really clever design work, great animation, all right, really good characters. Zootopia may well be Disney's best movie since The Lion King, the best animated movie since The Lion King. All right, this is a phenomenal animated movie, and definitely if you have kids, this is a fantastic one to pick up. But even if you don't, even if you're a single adult who has no kids, Zootopia is a great movie for you no matter what age you are. All right, Disney, 2 thumbs up. Now, before I give my pick for the number 1 best movie of 2016, let me discuss a few runners-up which weren't quite good enough to get on this list, but are still really good movies that you should check out. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was a really well done and really well executed entry into the Harry Potter universe, and it actually benefited from not being an adaptation of a Harry Potter book, and thus it's not trying to fit a 700 plus page book into a 2-hour movie that can't fit its storyline. This was structured and written by the original author of the books as a screenplay from the ground up, and thus it's take place over a very short period of time, and thus feels much better structured as a movie than the vast majority of the Harry Potter movies did. What's really awesome about this movie is that it managed to capture both the mythology, the whimsy, as well as many of the darker elements of the Harry Potter series, while also feeling just different enough that it's telling a very different story, although there are callbacks to the Harry Potter movies. Overall, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is a very good flick that fans of Harry Potter should certainly check out, and fans of fantasy in general should also enjoy. The remake of Birth of a Nation tells the story of the Nate Turner Rebellion of 1830. What we have with this film is a grim feature about the dark worlds of pre-antebellum slavery. What this movie does is show the brutality of that era, as well as the aspirations of freedom of the people of the time. Now, Birth of a Nation is not a perfect movie. If you were to compare it to 2013's Best Picture winner 12 Years a Slave, its performances as well as its editing show clear signs of lack of craftsmanship by comparison. Yet, despite that, the story of Nat Turner is a very compelling tale, of a man who fought for his freedom and eventually lost in the rebellion. While Finding Dory didn't hit it off for me the way 2003's Finding Nemo did, Finding Dory is still a very good entry into the Pixar canon that often feels like it's building on themes the first Finding Nemo brought up, and this movie expands on them further in incredibly creative ways. What I really liked about this movie was this movie's dealing with mental illness, and for people who suffer from mental illness to find the strengths of their characters. Finding Dory, of course, in usual Pixar fashion, features some absolutely stunning computer animation that ranks among some of the best in the industry. While Finding Dory may not have been quite as good as last year's Pixar canon, this definitely is still a very solid animated movie that you should check out, particularly if you have kids. Seth Rogen's Sausage Party is a filthy, hilarious movie, and is a great example of how dirty adult comedy can be done with a great degree of maturity and success. With the movie's examinations on religion, with various food items believing owners are gods, and the ugly truth of what happens to them after we buy them, this was a very, very funny movie. You get various different characters who are put in different situations, and the commentary never fails to be sharp-witted and clever, and the laughs are genuinely funny. This is, of course, an animated movie that is absolutely not for children, but for adults who want to watch something that's a little bit what am I saying a little bit? That's really messed up, but clever and funny. You will get a huge kick out of Sausage Party. Alright, time to reveal my number one pick for the best movie of 2016. Drum roll, please. And my number one pick for the year 2016, Koba and the Two Strings. Koba and the Two Strings is an absolutely amazing, wonderful, gorgeous animated movie with a stunning heart, a love for humanity, and the fact that it did so poorly at the box office, in my opinion, is an absolute travesty against cinema. If anyone out there is listening to this who ignored Koba and the Two Strings, but you gladly took your kids to The Secret Life of Pets or Ice Age Collision Course, what were you thinking? What's wrong with you? But just so everyone knows, it's not too late to support this amazing movie. Buy it. Buy Koba and the Two Strings. Preferably Blu-ray 3D, but doesn't matter. Buy this amazing movie. Everything about this movie, and I've seen it a couple more times since it came out, is just stunning. And watch some of the behind-the-scenes stuff on the Blu-ray. It shows all the craftsmanship, the size of some of these puppets that Leica built in their studio. What an amazing job that they did. What a stunningly talented company that they are, and how amazingly unfair is it that their work goes so unappreciated by the general public. You get in this movie a story, of course, of Kobo, a boy who apparently is the grandson of a moon spirit who is after him, and his mother who wants to keep him on Earth and keep his eyes so that he can see and empathize with mankind. In this movie, it almost feels like the villains have a sympathetic quality. Yes, what they do is terrible, and it doesn't shy away from the horrors of their actions. And in the end, doesn't try to cop it out either. There's no, bringing everybody back or cop-outs. It deals with the harsh reality of everything that came before it. Don Bluth once said that, I believe in a Nostalgia Critic video, that in order to really appreciate the light, you have to go through the darkness, and this movie does that. It's willing to be a little creepy sometimes. Some of the scenes may get a bit intense for the really little ones, but that is something that I think most kids really need to deal with. This is a film that really shows the glory of the light and the love of family by putting these characters through this adventure, and all through with this meticulously crafted stop-motion animation. You've never seen a stop-motion movie on this scale before. And there's CGI in it, and I have nothing against CGI, okay? It's used in a few scenes in this movie, like the water. That can't really be done with stop motion, unfortunately. And of course, some other movies on this list use some great CGI. But Kobo's stop motion feels really like a breath of fresh air in a world so cluttered with it. This is an absolutely wonderful animated movie. You have voice by Charlize Theron, Matthew McConaughey, George Takei, all of which comes together to create a true animated masterpiece. Kobo and the Two Strings, probably my second favorite animated movie of the past 5 years, right behind Pixar's masterpiece Inside Out, which of course is my favorite movie of 2015. But despite not being quite on that level, it's still a masterpiece. This is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Watching this movie is an experience. It's something that you behold in front of you in absolute awe. Go see Kobo and the Two Strings. Go buy Kobo and the Two Strings. Please, everyone, appreciate movies like this when they come out, because they don't come out that often. Original and stunning pictures like this. Well, thanks for joining me, everybody, throughout 2016. I've gained a whole lot of new subscribers. My channel is still very small, but I am appreciative of everyone who follows this channel. I hope to see you all throughout 2017. I have some good ideas for Loudmouth reviews, and I plan on branching out into other areas this year. And I really hope you like what I got, and I appreciate everyone who enjoys the work I do here. So everyone, please share, like, and subscribe, and really help this channel grow and spread. Thanks, and everyone have a wonderful 2017. Bye, everybody.